Leo, do you want to say hi to the camera? Hello again. It's me, Sophia, if you didn't already know. And today I'm actually joined by a special guest, Leo, the fashion expert. And today I'm talking about one of my absolute favorite topics, celebrity. And no, I don't just mean celebrities, which if you know me, I also love talking about that. I mean like the theory and construct of celebrity itself. The success of any individual celebrity hinges on many different points, but one of the biggest ones is their availability to be reached by an audience. And I always found it so interesting how certain celebrities could remain so successful and popular despite kind of being a little bit out of the public eye in terms of their private life. This is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a long time. I always thought that like if I did make a YouTube channel, this is a video I would post. So I'm really excited. Today we're going to be talking about the power of the out of reach celebrity. So obviously, like social media and having 24/7 access to what our favorite celebrities are doing and like celebrity gossip, Instagram accounts, all that kind of stuff is relatively new, but it still applies like the similar concept of like gossip magazines, all that kind of stuff. Like celebrities, in order to stay relevant, have to be in the media. But like I said, there are a few celebrities who are able to stay super popular and relevant despite like not really giving much about their personal lives. And the single best example of this is Greta Garbo, which we will return to later. Some more modern day examples of this are people like Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, who kind of keep their like family and private life out of the media. But the modern example that I'm most interested in is Bella Hadid. Okay, so I know what you're gonna say, but Sophia, Bella Hadid does post on social media. Yes, she definitely does more so now, but if you think about like a year or two ago, probably more like 2 or 3 years ago, she really didn't post much of anything personal on Instagram, and definitely not on YouTube or any kind of videos, stuff like that. And the stuff that she did do was very impersonal, and it was usually for sponsorships. Like I remember she did like probably the shortest Vogue like beauty tips video I've ever seen. And it was because of her partnership with Dior. So a lot of the stuff that she did was probably stipulated in a contract that she had to do. And I know that she recently opened up about her mental health and struggles with Lyme disease, and I believe something else as well. I'm not totally positive what it is. And I know that all of that must have been really, really difficult for her and probably fed into her not wanting to make her private life super public. But I would argue that this kind of allowed her to become so powerful. Okay, so before we get too much into this, let's lay down some groundwork and talk about stardom and like theories of celebrity and the golden age of Hollywood and the star system. In his book, Visible Fictions, Cinema, Television, Video, John Ellis defines a star as a performer in a particular medium whose figure enters into subsidiary forms of circulation and then feeds back into future performances. I think this is a really great definition because it kind of encompasses how a star's performance and their performance within a certain media and then their performance outside of their performance really feeds back into each other and encompasses the person as a whole. Stars are at once both ordinary because on one hand they are just real people, and extraordinary because of the lives that they live and how different that is to regular people. Stardom is defined by film theorist Richard Dyer as an image of the way that stars live. And this image almost always falls under the notion of the American dream. The American dream is defined by James Truslow Adams as a life better, richer, fuller. And this is always evolving as, especially within capitalism, as people continue to want more and more, but the concept remains the same. Between the 1920s to the 1950s within Hollywood, this was kind of the golden age of the star system. Hollywood created and managed each of their contractually obligated stars. If you didn't know, back then stars had to sign contracts with studios, usually stipulating like how many movies they had to make, how many public appearances they had to make, interviews they would have to do, even down to like certain personality traits that they had to portray. And this was all in order to make their performances seem more authentic. Hollywood thought that by selling like a complete version of a person as like a character that they're portraying on screen, as well as this is just the person they are in their everyday life, They thought that this would kind of make people relate to stars a little bit more. So at heart, this really was a marketing strategy. Ellis writes that this tactic arrived in America after the initial expansion of cinema was done, and they needed a new way to kind of like attract people to the theater. And they realized that the stars themselves were actually a big selling point in these movies. And they realized that the supposed personality of a performer could be a way of describing the performance. In his book, Stars, Richard Dyer elaborates on a theory of social types by O.E. Clapp, and this theory is like has its problems, obviously, but I think it works really well within describing stars because Dyer suggests that stars encompass a whole way of being and are usually grouped into certain types that are easily digestible for the audience. He describes a social type as a shared, recognizable, easily grasped image of how people are in society, with collective approval or disapproval built into it. And these representations help us make sense of the world around us, not just within celebrities. When it comes to celebrities, though, we can kind of see ourselves within these people and watch their lives play out and not have to make the decisions for ourselves. So we can judge them, we can root for them, all within the comfort of our own home. This relationship that we have with celebrities is what's described as a parasocial relationship. These relationships are one-sided, and this often takes the pressure off because obviously you can't get rejected by somebody who literally does not know you. It's funny to think back to when, in the 50s, when this theory was kind of starting up, Donald Horton and Richard Wohl describing radio and television and movies, and for a lot of people, having like a TV in your home and having like faces and voices in your living room was this like really spooky, really weird thing. Oh, but if only they knew how far we would take it with phones and social media. So parasocial relationships are cultivated through the media by which we receive information about celebrities. See, it's coming back to being relevant in the media. As I mentioned earlier, celebrities often encompass the American dream and give some kind of aspect of that. The idea being that, like, if they can do it, then why can't I? All right, so now that we understand a little bit more about the theory of celebrity, the star system, let's get into it. So as I mentioned, Greta Garbo is, oh, bye Leo. Greta Garbo is one of the best examples of a star who remained so elusive in her personal life despite achieving such incredible success with her career. Garbo was born Greta Lovisa Gustafsson, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and she was a Swedish-American actor who is one of the few figures actually to conquer the switch from silent films to talkies. Her career launched in 1924 in a Swedish film, and she retired in 1941 at the age of 36. She was really well known for her melancholy performances, as the characters she portrayed rarely had happy endings.
Marguerite. No, don't leave me. Marguerite, come back. Come back.
But she definitely embodied the American dream as an immigrant from Sweden who moved to America and achieved success, finding fame and notoriety as well. Garbo's social type fits into what Dyer would categorize as the independent woman, more specifically the superwoman. This individual adopts stereotypically male characteristics so that she can enjoy male privileges or simply to survive. This image helps people relate to her or aspire to her and also pass judgments about her. One of my favorite articles ever is written by David Thomson, and it's titled Waiting for Garbo, which is so dramatic. And in this article, he writes, "She must be no one to herself if she is to signify so much to so many others. More than any other photographed face, she guessed that the secret of the movies is in the face, pretending it is unaware of being photographed, but offering itself to the fantasy of the voyeur." Thomson, I think this article, he really hits the nail on the head with Garbo. It's something that obviously we can only speculate about because she was so private. And despite like being in a contract, she never really gave interviews, which is kind of crazy to think about because everyone else was like really expected to do this. So I'm not quite sure how she got out of that. In the article, Thomson even brings in Roland Barthes, who's a French theorist. He, I believe, studied semiotics. And he says, "The photograph is the idea of reality that permits us to live in our imaginations. This quote literally gives me chills. I think it's such an incredible way of describing the celebrity and the parasocial relationship, because everything that we think we know about these people is from photographs and videos. I mean, very rarely do people actually meet these celebrities. And if they do, it's usually not within like a personal setting. Garbo seemed to kind of disappear after the film Two-Faced Woman, which was a flop. And some think it's because she recognized her time was just up. But also, a large part of her fan base was in Europe, and this was during World War II, so a lot of those people like weren't really watching movies. But whatever caused her disappearance, after that, she really like remained so private that it's really, really hard / impossible to find a photograph of her aging, and this kind of allowed her to be forever immortalized in her film performances. Thomson compares Garbo to a ghost. This is somebody who's like stuck between life and death, and I think this is a really great analogy, because in the same way that certain celebrities who died young are always remembered in their form, like the age that they died, Garbo has she achieved the same thing without actually dying. When you think about like Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, Heath Ledger, all those people, we don't obviously know anything about what they would have looked like if they aged. So in our minds, they're just forever young. And Garbo kind of did the same thing. Garbo only allowed herself to be perceived while she was playing a character, which kind of makes some think that this is actually what she was like in person, but obviously we don't really know that. But I think that it just makes her performances even more intriguing. Like, you just want to read into every single movement, every expression, every line, because you're trying to find something of her, like something of her true personality within these performances. By refusing to hand over her private life to the press, both during her career and after, she really was able to achieve this unattainability as a star. And something about this air of mystique to me really does add to her performances, because in a lot of her movies, she is this mysterious, independent woman. Although this mystique is a lot more difficult to achieve now in the age of social media, it can still be done. Unlike celebrities like the Kardashians who hand over every second of their lives to the highest bidder, we do still have some celebrities that keep their cards close to their chest. And one of the examples that I like is Bella Hadid. So a little bit of background on Miss Bella Hadid. She's the daughter of Yolanda and Mohammed Hadid. Yolanda was a very famous model in her day, and Mohammed, I believe, is like a real estate mogul or something. Growing up, she didn't really model. Gigi started modeling before her, and her mom was on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So sometimes she was on that show, actually, but be warned if you're going to watch it, because the way that Yolanda talks to them about food is like absolutely terrifying. So don't say I didn't warn you. But on that show, really, the only thing I can remember her for is when she got a DUI. But as I mentioned, Bella didn't really start modeling until later. Gigi was kind of the one whose modeling career was taking off while they were still filming the show. And even after she started modeling, while her sister and, famous model friends like Kendall Jenner could be seen on YouTube doing like what's in my bag and all those kind of videos, Bella didn't really do that as much. As I mentioned, she had some videos, but they didn't really show her personality at all. And like I said, they were pretty impersonal, and a lot of them were, it was obvious that they were for sponsorships. It's almost as if outside of her work, she gave just enough to keep the audience interested and kind of questioning, but not enough to fully leave you satisfied. I would say it was about 2 or 3 years ago when Bella started sharing a little bit more about her personal life. Maybe when she did the 73 questions video with Vogue. I believe that was 2018. After that, I feel like that was maybe her trying to be herself a little bit more, and she's only started to do that more and more since then. Recently, she opened up in an interview with Vogue, even stating that her public persona and her private personality, there was kind of a huge gap between these two things. Usually photos of her depict this like steely, cold, sexy woman who is unfeeling. However, author of the article, Rob Haskell, writes, "Lately, a shift in the iconography seems to be conveying a fresh message that she is suffering too, that the facade is sometimes nothing but a steel dam against a rising floodwater of tears. In the interview, Hadid says, "I was the uglier sister. I was the brunette. I wasn't as cool as Gigi, not as outgoing. That's really what people said about me. And unfortunately, when you get told these things so many times, you do just believe it. I always ask myself, how did a girl with incredible insecurities, anxiety, depression, body image issues, eating issues, who hates to be touched, who has intense social anxiety, what was I doing getting into this business? But over the years, I became a very good actress. I put on a very smiley face or a very strong face." I think this quote really helps me draw the comparison to Garbo, because she wasn't allowing herself to be perceived as who she thought she truly was by the outside world. She was putting on this persona, a character. She didn't feel comfortable enough in her own skin to be really perceived as who she thought she really was. So she embodied this like cold-blooded sex symbol. Although this unwillingness to be perceived for who she truly is came from a place of insecurity, which, I mean, is kind of ironic, because how can you really show people who don't know you who you truly are? But I digress. I think this allowed her to become much more desirable, and people were forced to make their own conclusions about who they thought she is. This ability to remain just out of reach in the age of social media is no easy feat, and from the interview, she seems like she's kind of aware of this. She talks at one point about her relationship with Mark Kalman, and how if you let people have opinions, it kind of spoils things, and maybe she's referencing her relationship with The Weeknd there. But like I said, not knowing only makes people want to know more. So you're reading into every little post she makes, every video that she appears in. But ever since this Vogue interview, she seems to have opened up even more on her own social media accounts, posting more on TikTok as well, just kind of quirky things that she feels like actually display who she is as a person. Hadid says, "If people have a better understanding of who I am, then I feel less alone within myself." I think this interview is really revealing. I'm glad, obviously, that she's in a place where she feels like she can share and feel comfortable being who she is. But Garbo never did that. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, if she had been alive and been famous during this age of social media, would she have felt forced to do something like this as well? Or would she have been able to achieve that same mystery? So while being present in the media is obviously a crucial part of celebrity, I do think there is something to be said about not giving everything away. Remaining accessible while also being just out of reach kind of gives you a little bit of power and makes your viewers want to know even more. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed my second video. I had so much fun talking about this. Like I said, this is a topic that I've always kind of been excited about and always wanted to talk about. I'm already cooking up ideas for new videos. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.